We've all seen the footage coming out of Los Angeles. Journalists are getting shot. ICE agents are showing up in civilian clothes and masks and abducting people. This cannot be ignored. This is not a drill. What's happening here is the Trump regime is trying to turn Los Angeles and specifically and the United States in general into a police state. This weekend, a Rubicon was crossed, and finally, the press noticed. Waking up this morning, there were headlines across the country sounding the alarm, making it clear to the American people that we are entering, indeed have entered, very dangerous territory. In the midst of this ongoing, intentionally created emergency, I wanted to speak directly to our community because this is indeed happening. It is happening right before our eyes. We need to confront it. We need to get our facts straight and we need to stand together. So let's start with what we know. Donald Trump didn't just send a few extra ICE agents into Los Angeles. He federalized the California National Guard, 2,000 troops deployed into a city that did not ask for them, did not need them, and specifically told Donald not to send them. This is the first time since 1963 that a president has seized control of a state's National Guard over the objection of its governor. That last time, Lyndon Johnson overruled Alabama Governor George Wallace in order to enforce desegregation. Why? Well, because George Wallace, like other Southern governors, was ignoring Supreme Court orders. And Johnson sent out the troops to protect democracy. This time, troops were sent not to protect civil rights. They were sent to suppress them. They were sent to make sure that the people showing up to protest were no longer allowed to exercise their First Amendment rights to protest peacefully. All of this because people are protesting Donald's immigration raids and they're daring to resist. It started with coordinated ICE raids, not targeting criminals. Remember, that's what we were told. They're going after the worst of the worst. No, they were targeting workplaces known to employ migrants or places where migrants gather. So people who need help at construction sites or what have you know where to find them. That would be places like Home Depot, Los Angeles's garment district. At least 120 people were detained at places like this. Again, many were also arrested in their workplace. We still don't know whether judicial warrants were used. I'm going to take a shot here and suggest that they weren't. What we do know is this: ICE agents showed up in tactical gear, dressed like militia, not civil servants, and within hours, protests erupted across the city. These were still peaceful. They were vocal, they were determined, but they were peaceful. But Donald doesn't like seeing democracy in action. Why? Because democracy does not redound to his benefit. He sees democracy as a threat to his authoritarian ambitions. By Saturday, Donald invoked Title 10 of the U.S. Code, a rarely used provision intended for genuine rebellion. It allows federal troops to act if there's a danger of rebellion against the authority of the United States. There was no rebellion here. Again, these were American citizens standing up to protest peacefully against a policy of the Trump regime they find vile, unconstitutional, and unacceptable. Even the Los Angeles Police Department said the protests were mostly peaceful. Governor Gavin Newsom said they had it under control. California has 75,000 law enforcement officers in the entire state. If there had been unrest, there were more than enough officers to quell it. But Donald wants a spectacle because spectacle does benefit him. By Sunday, flashbangs exploded over freeway overpasses. Protesters were tear gassed. They were hit with rubber bullets, and many were arrested simply for standing on sidewalks. This isn't policy, it's theater, but it's very dangerous theater. And it comes with a lot of unqualified people showing up in riot gear. Behind that theater is strategy, however. As David Frum wrote in The Atlantic, this is a dress rehearsal for 2026, for 2028, for the day Donald Trump decides elections are too dangerous for him to lose. And the only way for him to get his way is to create enough chaos so the American people have no recourse and don't even know where to turn anymore. Donald is baiting the public into committing acts of violence that he can then exploit. He wants that footage. He wants those things to go viral. He wants the excuse manufactured by him and his brown shirts in order to call in more troops, in order perhaps and probably to unleash active military on the American people. Donald has already threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act, which could actually let him deploy federalized forces anywhere he deems ICE to be threatened. Stephen Miller posted these protests were an insurrection. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told Fox that Marines were on high alert. Marines, active duty military. That is not allowed under the Constitution. That violates the Posse Comitatus Act, but they don't care about that either. So these are not veiled threats.
If you're not planning to invoke that Insurrection Act, do you still plan to send troops?
Well, we're going to have troops everywhere. We're not going to let this happen to our country. We're not going to let our country be torn apart like it was under Biden and his auto pen.
Okay. What exactly are you not going to allow happen in our country? You are not going to allow American citizens to exercise their constitutional rights. Well, we know this because you are already trying to take away so many of them. We know this because American citizens who are allowed to exercise their constitutional rights will reject you utterly and outright and wholesale. This is what they want. Even former DHS Chief of Staff Miles Taylor, who worked in the first Trump administration, said that this is what they feared all along, a de facto police state. Meanwhile, the White House released a statement calling protesters violent mobs and defending the crackdown as necessary to stop a, quote, invasion of illegal criminals, unquote. This kind of language is not just inflammatory, it's authoritarian, and it's purposeful. They are making it seem like peaceful protesters are insurrectionists. They are making it sound like the protesters are violent and that they are engaging in mob activity. And this is intentional. The double standards are impossible to ignore. Civilians who wore face masks, likely to protect themselves from tear gas, were labeled suspicious. Donald even posted the following, quote, masks will not be allowed to be worn at protests, unquote. Well, first of all, he can't say that, and he can't do anything about it. This week, however, FBI director and one of Donald's chief lackeys, Kash Patel, warned Americans not to attack federal officers. Meanwhile, state officers were attacked with tear gas by federal agents, depending on community members to help them out.
In the midst of chaos during the protests, this is new video showing restaurant workers helping sheriff's deputies in Compton. You can see some of the deputies sitting in the booths as workers help to flush their eyes, likely after getting hit with tear gas. After a short break, the deputies put their gas masks back on and headed back out.
The Trump regime is criminalizing dissent. That is what's happening. In Los Angeles, state officials were blocked from entering federal buildings, facilities they legally oversee.
Hi, it's Congresswoman Norma Torres, and I am not sure if ICE here at the building where we are, the side door has deployed some kind of chemical agent, because suddenly we are all coughing and unable, having a very tough time breathing.
Journalists were shoved, shot at, and some of them were hospitalized. Some even say that this sets a precedent not even seen in active war zones.
LAPD has opened fire with rubber rounds. We got hit, you can see there. This is our security guard. You can see that white powder there. That's where he got hit.
After hours hours of standing off, this situation has now rapidly deteriorated. The LAPD moving in on horseback, firing rubber bullets at protesters, moving them on through the heart of LA.
You just shut the fuck up. You okay?
I'm good.
Are you okay?
Civilians, innocent bystanders, some of them, were trapped in cars as tear gas seeped through the vents.
They went in front of a business, a negocio, and they started raiding. They started bringing people out in vans. When they saw us looking at them doing all that, that's when they started throwing tear gas. Everybody was still in their vehicles. We're not there to protest. We were stuck at the light. There was a woman and her young daughter. She was around 13. I kept in touch with them, and as we speak, she's in the hospital because the tear gas bomb hit her right in the face. They were right behind us. The tear gas explodes. They come out crying out of their vehicle, and they can't breathe.
Protesters were shot at even if they had their hands held in the air.
Looks like pepper balls being deployed, maybe rubber bullets. All right, we got a big force coming out here, guys. Big force coming out. Gas, we've got gas, flashbangs, pepper balls.
Is that about order? Is that about maintaining public order? Is that about law and order? No. This is a form of domestic terrorism, and it's about dominance. Donald Trump has no interest in protecting the Constitution, a document he's never read, a document that remains a hurdle, sort of, to his having the kind of absolute power he so desperately craves. He's expert, though, at violating the Constitution. As we need to keep saying over and over and over again, the First Amendment guarantees the right of all Americans to assemble. But this is the terrifying part. Donald Trump doesn't need congressional approval for any of this. And, well, quite frankly, even if he did, the Republicans in Congress would cede their power to him anyway. But thanks to decades of legal neglect, presidents can declare a national emergency whenever they want. And this allows them to unlock over 150 special powers. Courts can challenge him. Yes, we've seen this happening over and over and over again. It continues to happen on a daily basis in dozens and dozens of cases across the country. But that is not going to stop this fast enough. Congress, again, could override him with a 2/3 majority in both chambers. With Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune, no, the Republicans are going to do absolutely nothing to contain the out-of-control behavior of a madman. And Donald knows all of this. That's why he's already declared 8 national emergencies in his first 100 days in office, more than any modern president. Legal scholars like Elizabeth Gotine and Kim Lane Chappelle are sounding the alarm. This, they tell us, is how democracies fall, slowly and then all at once. What we're witnessing is the rise of a dual state. One state looks normal. Courts are open, businesses are busy, press papers are still printing, the media is still reporting. But what else is going on here? Another state is gaining power and ascendance. This state is where the laws do not apply to those in charge, where ICE can detain people outside of courthouses, where protests are called invasions and protesters are maligned as being insurrectionists. In this state, troops patrol cities without consent. This is how autocracies grow, not by tearing up the Constitution in one day, but by building a second system beneath it, one that targets a few until it targets everyone. So what do we do now? I have to say, this is a very long time coming. We have seen this for at least 10 years now. We know, or should have known, that this is what they have been preparing for. The architects of Project 2025, those who made sure that Donald Trump, of all people, got back into office. We have a lot we can do, though. We need to stay calm. We need to stay very clear-eyed, and we need to show up, not to create spectacle, but to deny Donald his spectacle. This Saturday is being called No King's Day. It's going to be a national day of peaceful action to counter the obscene parade, military parade, Donald is planning to throw for himself on his birthday. We are not going to have chaos. We are not going to have any kind of violent confrontation. We need to show up. And we need to make sure that we do not give Donald or his thugs any excuses to commit violence against us. We do not give them any excuses to exploit a situation they so desperately want to exploit. We need to make sure that when they look at us showing up in massive numbers, they do not see us afraid. They see us resolved. They see us digging deep so that they know we are not going away. We are not going to bend the knee to them. In fact, we are going to fight them peacefully with every single tool at our disposal. If we meet his escalation with unity and resolve, we take away his biggest weapon, control. We cannot allow these people, these fascists, these anti-American thugs to control us. Los Angeles is a shot across the bow. Let's make sure that it is not a blueprint for their going into other cities across the country. So we want you to be prepared because honestly, this is not going to be easy. This does not come without risk. Whether you plan to march on Saturday or just want to stay safe in your daily life, because at this point, I think it's pretty clear they're willing to go after anybody if they get in the way. We want to make sure that you stay as safe as humanly possible. That's why tomorrow we're going to be releasing a special report on resources, how to protect yourself, how to protect each other, how to resist in the most effective way possible. Because right now, what do we have? We have each other. We have resistance. And eventually, we must get to the point where we are willing to sacrifice more than many of us imagine what we would ever have to. And we together are going to have to shut it all down. Please take a second and like and share this video. It'd be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.